So this is the rubric, and the pink sheet that you should have received start looks like this: transitions in writing. So and this just reminds you like what a transition are. Transitions are words and phrases that help move the reader from one sentence to the next without making her confused, because that's the big idea, is that like you do not want your reader to be confused when you're writing to them. You want to see a clear reason or a clear understanding between the text and or between the sentences in the text. So when I'm going to jump to this. So this concept of an automatic and a manual transition, which is also in your pink packet. And at first, before we start talking about transitions, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about transmissions. And anyone that knows about transmissions knows that there are two kinds. There is an automatic transition and a manual transition. So you're probably, like myself, more familiar with an automatic transition. However, there might be some of you in this classroom that do know or understand and know how to use a manual transmission on a car. What this has to do is it has to do with how you shift gears in a car. So like going from reverse to drive, going from drive to neutral, going from reverse to park. So like that's all part of the transmission. It's telling the engine, this is what we're going to be doing right now. And so in an automatic transmission, it shifts for you. I mean, like if for those of you that are doing behind the wheel, for those of you that are learning how to drive, like this is typically what you're going to see in a car. And it's nice because it shifts for you. You do not have to make that decision about when to shift. Like if when you hear you don't have to pay attention to the engine to see like when you need to shift. Instead, it shifts for you. You literally don't have to think about it at all. And what I mean by that is when you're in drive, it moves from like first gear to third gear, to fifth gear. Like you don't have to think about any of that at all. Of course, you need to shift into reverse, to neutral, and to park, but the rest of this you don't have to think about. Okay. And it is so easy to learn. You do not have to think about, like, if I'm going up a hill, how do I need to transition? Or how do I need to shift in the transmission? If I am going down a hill, if I'm on ice, you don't have to think about that at all because the automatic transition does that for you. Now, the issue is that when you do have an automatic transmission, the car sometimes doesn't know when to shift. So if there might be something broken in the transmission, you would hear the car like rev up a lot, and then you're like, oh my God, I think my car is going to blow up. And then like you either have to slow down or you need to try and motivate the shift, which means like perhaps go faster. And that can be really dangerous because it can hurt the engine. When it does get hurt, it can be difficult, or excuse me, when it does that, it can be more difficult to drive. It is way more stressful when you're in an automatic transmission and it starts to try to shift, but you can't shift it. It's also really costly to fix. So like when something's wrong with my engine, and the last car that I had, which we just got a new car earlier this year, the last car last year, we had to go in a lot because there was something going on with the engine. The transmission was not doing what it was supposed to, and it cost a lot of money. So, like an automatic transition, while it might be beneficial in the short run, in the long term, it can be really problematic, which is the exact opposite for a manual transmission. Overall, once you learn how to do this, it is a smoother ride. That things go a lot smoother. You don't have to worry about your engine because you are making the decision of when to shift. Sometimes the driver needs to shift earlier than the car would think it does. And so like a manual transmission allows the driver to decide when is best. Um, Frankly, and when it does break, it's less expensive because there's no more gears that you have to deal with. A manual transmission is easier. You just kind of fix the engine as opposed to the engine and the gear thing that allows you to shift. And in general, you just look cooler while you're driving it. I don't know how to do a manual transmission, but I know that people who do know how to drive it are a lot cooler. The difficulty is that it takes a lot longer to learn how to drive. That my husband knows how to do a manual transmission, and it said it took him about a week, as opposed to, and that's just how to shift. That's not even like when I learned to drive with an automatic, there was no learning how to shift whatsoever. I didn't have to think about that at all. So you have to spend more time thinking about the car and how to drive it. So some people see that as a downfall to the manual transmissions. And so, like, let's now talk about how this relates to transitions. So if an automatic transmission is easier to use, that's what an automatic transition is. Like, everybody knows these. Like, you use these transitions all the time. So for example, here's some, like, but is an automatic transition. However is an automatic transition. Although, furthermore, in addition to, these are called automatic because they literally can work at any piece of writing. It doesn't matter if I'm writing about conflict, if I'm writing about healthy or unhealthy relationships. I can use the word furthermore to show a relationship. It doesn't matter if I'm writing about Once by the Pacific or if I'm writing about Scarlet Ibis. I can use the word although. There is nothing that stops me from using these. I mean, aside from knowing how this shows relationship, but like, there's nothing about the writing itself that says I cannot use an automatic transition. So here's an example. I will almost never be gone from school. However, my son and I have been sick lately. Therefore, I have been gone more regularly. Excuse me. So here, the word however shows you that I'm about to contradict what I just said. It's a caveat. So I will almost never be gone from school. However, what I'm about to tell you contradicts what I just said. My son and I have been sick lately. So these two, it shows the relationship. This transition shows the relationship to say this and this contradict. Then I have another automatic transition. Therefore, I have been gone more regularly. So this transition shows me that this sentence is the result of, so because therefore means like therefore means in summation or because. So not because. It doesn't mean because. It means like, it means this is a result of. So the word since works there as well. However, my son and I have been sick lately. Therefore, I have been gone more regularly. So therefore says that this sentence is the direct result of this one. So even though this sentence contradicts this first one, I'm almost never gone from school. My son and I have been sick lately. Those two contradict each other, but these two sentences, my son and I have been sick lately, I have been gone more regularly, shows a direct correlation. Because we've been sick, I've been gone more regularly. So these transitions show a relationship between each other. And so in your pink packet, you'll actually see the paragraph. So this is a paragraph written by Jackie Chan about about like power and friendships. So you'll notice that I've highlighted all of the transitions in this paragraph. So one reason people lie is to achieve personal power. So there's no transition to show the relationship here. Achieving power is helpful for someone who pretends to be more confident than he really is. For example, so that transition tells my reader, I'm about to give you specific examples of what I just said. So it's alerting your reader to saying, like, watch out, I just made a claim, I just said something, and now I'm going to prove it. So he says, for example, one of my friends threw a party at his house last month. If you didn't have that transition, that would be very confusing. Achieving personal power is helpful for someone who pretends to be more confident than he really is. One of my friends threw a party. That seems totally unrelated. But if you have the transition, for example, that makes a lot of sense. So, continuing. He asked me to come to his party and bring a date. However, So that shows a direct relationship. These two don't relate. They contradict each other. However, I didn't have a girlfriend. One of my other friends, who had a date to go to the party with, asked me about my date. I didn't want to be embarrassed, so, or therefore, I claimed that I had a lot of work to do. I said I could easily find a date even better than his if I wanted to. Oh, snap, Jackie Chan, that's a burn. I also told him that his date was ugly. Okay, now that's getting personal. But also, notice how I didn't highlight this one. That's also a transition. Like, I also told him his date was ugly. So, in addition to saying that I could find a better date, I said that his date was an uggo. I achieved power to help me feel confident. However, so again, I'm about to contradict what I just said. I embarrassed my friend on his date. Although this lie helped me at the time, since then has made me look down on myself. So there's tons of transitions to show you how these all relate. And notice how these transitions don't all mean the same thing. And that's why the packet is also really nice, because automatic transitions have a pretty, like, there's not an infinite amount of them. There's a pretty specific amount of transitions, and this is not a complete list. But this list on the back side of your the first page of the pink sheet, you'll notice that there are different automatic transitions that you can use depending on your purpose. So to show addition means like in it, like obviously, like the word again or next. Like these are showing the relationship between the two. To give examples, here are some automatic transitions you could use. So you could say, like, there are many ways that I tried to get power. Specifically, there was one time when my friend invited me to a party. So that's alerting your reader that I'm about to give you another, or not another, but I'm about to give you an example. To compare, this is also, like, I would write here to compare and contrast. Oh, not and contrast, sorry. Or contrast. Because these are showing where if something is the same or if something is different. So, for example, although is something that is different. At the same time, something is the same, right? Nevertheless is the same. On the other hand, is different. Actually, nevertheless, I think is different. But so these show how two ideas are related to each other in terms of if they compare or contrast. To summarize or conclude, I would give you a heads up. These are not great transitions. In fact, these are not ones that I would use. If you want to show the relationship between time, you would use these ones. So, like, after I went to the party, that's showing me that what I just said happened like what I'm about to say happened after what I just said. To show direction or time, and then to indicate logical relationship. So, like, therefore means that this one thing caused the other. Because accordingly is the same thing. Like, this caused the next. So this is mostly talking about what causes the other. So take a look at those transitions, because those are going to be the ones that you use pretty regularly as automatic transitions. And so, yep. The thing about automatic transitions is that they can be used regardless of text. So I can use the word regardless in my conflict paragraph. I can use the word regardless in my my relationships paragraph. I can use that, doesn't matter. Like, that's the reason they're automatic, is because they work wherever you put them as long as they fit the context. So obviously I wouldn't use the word and if I want to use the word but. However, I can use the word and in any paragraph that I want. Now the difference is, let me put myself up here. Why am I doing this? Ah, geez. I wonder if you're seeing my floating head. Do you see my floating head? Because that's what's happening right now. Oh, I guess I'm just going to have to deal with this. So manual transitions, now these are more difficult. So the automatic transitions, you've been using, like, my son uses them. My son uses automatic transitions. He uses the word and, but, because. Manual transitions are more difficult, but when they are used properly, they are incredibly effective for your writing. So they're called manual because you create them yourself. You do this. There's not a list of manual transitions to help you. You simply have to articulate the more clear relationship between ideas. Um, they are often small phrases or even entire sentences that you use in your text to get from one idea to the next. So unlike the automatic transitions, which are like one or maybe two words long, there's sometimes three or four. Manual transitions are a full phrase, like almost like half a sentence. So if you take a look, so this right here says, even though I am usually not gone from school, illness has struck my house, thus taking me away from work. Is that what that says? It's not, it's taking away from my classroom. Illness has struck my, even though I am usually not gone from school. So that's a transition. So I'm giving you context. I'm giving you more information. So unlike the couple slides over where it said like I usually don't leave, I'm usually not gone from school, however, I'm giving that whole thing in this phrase. Even though I am usually not gone from school, illness has struck my house, thus taking me away from my classroom. And if you've been paying attention, you can find the automatic transition that I also used in this sentence. Can you find it? It's right here. The word thus. That is an automatic transition. But the manual transition is this phrase. Even though I am usually not gone from school. And again, that's a manual transition because I can't use it in another piece of writing. I couldn't use this phrase talking about conflict. I can only use this phrase in this spot right here. That's the only place that I can use it. And so a manual transition requires a lot more thinking on your part, but it shows a much more clear and appropriate relationship. So let's take a look at some other manual transitions here. While the dog ran around the house, his owner chased him with a newspaper. So I wouldn't say like the dog ran around the house because his owner chased him with the newspaper. In fact, that shows a different relationship. If I were to put the word because in these two sentences, now I've changed what that means. Now I have said that the owner's chasing him because he was running around the house. However, by saying while the dog ran around the house, that could be because the dog is scared of the owner. So he's trying to get away from the owner who's going to hit him. Or the next sentence, Jessica and Mikey walked down the hall only to be approached by the marauding principal. Once they saw the look in the administrator's face, they knew they were doomed. Or their end was imminent. But so this phrase, once they saw the look in the administrator's face, that tells you they knew they were doomed after they saw the principal's face. So this transition shows a direct and clear relationship. And again, I cannot put that in any other piece of writing. It only fits right there, right there. So you cannot use this in other pieces of writing. It's a manual transition because you've crafted it for this spot. Okay. So that's a brief overview of manual transitions and automatic transitions. I want to point you back to the rubric. Notice how the rubric doesn't say anything about what types of transitions you use, automatic or manual. However, it does say that it shows a direct relationship. I'm letting you know, need a combo of transitions. That means auto and manual. So you need to show me the different relationships. So not different relationships. You need to show me how to use these different types of transitions. And if you want to exceed standards, if you take a look, transitions seamlessly move the reader from one idea to the next to convey relationship of ideas in sentences. There is no disruption of thought and a variety are used throughout the paragraph. So if you want to go beyond just meeting standards, you're going to need to use a combination of automatic and manual. That is absolutely necessary. So I have an activity that you are going to go through in class today, and we're going to discuss these on Monday. So this is just you practicing using different types of transitions with different sentences. Again, sorry I'm not here today, but this is your responsibility. You are to complete this by the end of the hour and submit it on Google Classroom. Okay? Have a good rest of the weekend. Please spend some time studying vocab and working on your paragraph. I think by Monday, you want to have a clear topic sentence about conflict. You also want to have your 2 pieces of evidence that you've decided, because on Tuesday, you have to have a full paragraph. So by Monday, you want to have your topic sentence and you want to have your 2 pieces of evidence that you're going to write, and you should be starting to develop commentary. Do not wait until Monday evening to write this. You have to do it to prepare for your writing group on Tuesday.